So,
hi. Oh. Hi, everybody.
Hi. We have matching glasses.
We do. Mother-daughter team here. And we are live from the office. Hope y'all are having a great day. Victoria Rogers joined. My friend Tracy and James and Brandon. Have a lot of great people joining today, friends and family. Oh, Bearskin, Ronnie Bear's on. First time I've seen you, Ronnie. That is great.
I love your name.
Hey, Jenny. Good to see you today. So yeah, this is great. We are Kendall. Good. James says hi, y'all, from Amarillo.
Hey, James.
Good to see y'all. We are periscoping live from our office. My mom got sort of sucked into this last night. I just had this idea that maybe we could periscope again today, talk about Titus 2. I'll introduce myself, Trina Titus Lozano. I am a counselor and an ordained Christian minister, and this is my mother, Devi Titus.
Hi, everybody.
She is a minister, an author, and a speaker, and she has been talking about her book, The Home Experience, which is her first book, but you've written maybe 6 or so at this point. But anyway, it was her first one, and it's my personal favorite. I actually even wrote a curriculum for a college course that is directly straight out of this book because I was so inspired by it personally, and it's just a great book. So anyway, and thank you for joining everyone from Brazil. You've got some Brazilian followers today as well.
Tudo bem.
She has been ministering quite often in Brazil, over 200 days a year in Brazil for the past 4 years. So it's great to have her home and in the office today. So we're just going to get started talking about Titus 2 and about the home and all of these things.
Well, if you joined us last night, we started with the foundation of restoring the dignity and the sanctity of the home, which is the basis for human society. And I actually quoted Edward Gibbons, who wrote The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And he cited 5 basic reasons why great empires wither and die. Number 1, the undermining of the dignity and the sanctity of the home, which is the basis for human society. So no matter what nation you are in right now, we all agree home is the basis for human society. When the home disintegrates, the society disintegrates. So if we want to build a nation and strengthen a nation, then if undermining it causes a nation to collapse, building it would be to restore the family or the home, which is the basis. So I set out about 10 years ago to create a strategy, a curriculum that would actually multiply principles that could sweep like an underground revolution of revelation. And those are packaged in a coffee table book called The Home Experience.
And y'all catch the replay. If you didn't watch that last night, be sure to catch the replay, okay? Look, Stephanie Southwick is on.
Hey.
Good to see you. And also, and she's been through the Home Experience intensives, which we do, and we're going to be beginning again. So, hey, Kelsey, good to have you. Good to have you as well.
So probably the thing that we want to talk about today is out of the book of Titus, chapter 2. This is
like the picture behind me.
Yeah, that's true. This is a curriculum that actually Paul wrote to Titus, who was on the island of Greece called Crete. And just to understand the culture at the time that Paul wrote this letter to Titus, Paul was in prison, and he had been a missionary to Greece, of course, from Israel. And he had started a lot of churches in that region. You would know that the Greek Empire was very idolatrous. And what had happened at that time was women had really become idols of the culture. That's at that time was when goddess Diana, the goddess of fertility, etc.
Right.
So women were very high up in business, in leadership. It had become a real matriarchal society. Anytime you have women becoming the strength of a society, you will always have weak men. And so
we see that happening in America.
Yeah, and any nation or culture, this is not new.
It's historic. I think he wrote that book in 1788.
Well, that was Edward Gibbons. I'm talking about Paul.
Well, the Bible. Okay, Paul wrote that
it was
historically
actually about 40 years after Christ.
So 40 AD.
Yeah, it was about during 40 or 60. I'm forgetting right now.
Long time ago, but nevertheless, it's historically correct.
But a lot of people, when they read these verses, they read them out of maybe a current culture mentality or idea, and they don't realize when Paul wrote the letter to Titus, Titus now is the overseer of the churches that he had started, that Paul had started. Paul was imprisoned for preaching the gospel, and so it's Titus's responsibility, and he said, I want, and he lists here things to teach the young men and things to teach the young women. And so in chapter 2 is where he's talking specifically about women. But I think the real key thing here for us to understand is that values that were established through the gospel, through Jesus, the values that were established, and those values can be supported in the Old Testament before Jesus came to the earth. But those values, we are never to depend on governments to sustain. Right. They are to be sustained through the family. Through the home. And we get so militant to fight for our values in our government. We do this in America because we were founded on these values. Yeah. Other nations don't fight for these values because...
But we're founded on biblical values. We'd like to keep it that way. We'd like to
keep it that way, but we can keep it that way from house to house to house.
From our home.
Through our home.
And from generation to generation to generation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we are not bound by the culture, and we're not to be distracted by what culture says.
Right.
So he's telling...
Stay the course.
Yes. He's telling Timothy, and he does this in writing, I want you to teach the women, and then in Titus chapter 2, there is a list of 7 attributes that or values that we are to retain from woman to woman, generation to generation.
To generation to generation.
And we could do many, many months. I'm going to start my own Periscope in time, and I will really break down these concepts for you. But today, we just want to talk about one of them in relationship to last night, the dignity and sanctity of the home. And it's the one that all of you and I, if you're a lady watching, you want to read and you want to scribble it out. It is not one that we like, we don't want to understand it. We don't want
to cross it off and be like, nah, let's just ignore that part.
We think it's irrelevant to today, to the 21st century.
But it's not.
And it says to teach younger women to be the keeper of the home. Now,
keeper of
this word keeper is so interesting. And even some of your modern translations will say to be a worker at home. And then this puts, oh my goodness, keeper of the home, worker at home. Another translation says to be busy at home. And yet we have our doctorate degrees. We are doctors, we're nurses, we're lawyers, we're CEOs, or climbing the corporate ladder. We're very accomplished in what we do today. How does that fit into the 21st culture, 21st century woman? And I want to tell you how it does, because the Greek word for what the translators have done a miserable job interpreting is okurios. And the reason they call it busy at home is kurios, the second part of that word, is a domestic component. So it has to do with governing or overseeing the domestic responsibilities of a house. We're to teach women to be responsible domestically for the maintenance of your home, the caretaking of your home, maintaining the value of your home, the atmosphere of your home. And then, but the beginning of this word keeper really means to guard or to be the guardian of your home. Now, this is a very different idea than what most translations, busy or workers.
Being a guardian versus the vacuumer.
Exactly.
But it's actually both.
It is both, but the guardian is, let me just explain it this way. In the Old Testament, the guard was the person that the authority, so it could be the governor of the city, would hire the guard to stand at the gate of the city because all the cities were walled.
Right.
And his position was very an empowered position to report back, in a sense, to his headship.
Right.
And he was to look beyond the gates of the city for any encroachment of the enemy. And as the guardian in our home, God has assigned the domestic dominion to the woman. And this is over the principalities and powers of the air, of the enemy that wants to barrage the atmosphere of your home and take away peace and threaten love. So you start feeling, I'm not loved, I don't want to love, I'm sick of this, all the negativity. This is the enemy coming in. And what's happened as women, we haven't understood, we haven't done it on purpose. It's just that nobody told us. We didn't understand this principle, is that yes, I can be empowered, and even if I work out of the home, it's not a trade. We don't trade career for home. We always have a home. It's an addition. You can add career to your responsibility of the home, but God has empowered you not to be head over your husband, not to take authority over him, but take authority over Satan, the principalities and powers that want to come into your home.
Stand at the guard.
Yeah, and everybody says the husband is the head of the home. No, he's not. There is no scripture that says that. But the scripture does say that if you're married, he's the head of the wife.
But not the home.
But not the home.
It's my responsibility.
Big difference.
I gotta make, and I have, if some of you know my story, if you don't know, you can go to my website, Trina Titus Lozano, and check in my Parenting Center series under the letter L, and L is for love. It talks about my marriage and how at a time in my marriage, I had to be the guardian of my home in a way that you didn't have to, and also a way that my grandmother didn't have to. The guardian of when the enemy was just coming at us so strong, just completely stealing my husband's identity and sending him into this major midlife crisis. And I was really having to do serious spiritual warfare because the enemy wanted to seriously destroy my marriage and family. And, and I'm just like, not on my watch. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but
kind of thing.
Your testimony is different than ours. But I have to tell you, you were a child. You wouldn't have known the battles that I fought for our home too. So you say,
well, that's
I didn't
true.
have to fight.
Well, your battles were different.
They were different.
But didn't
equally forceful. Satan comes at us.
That's right.
With very different arsenal. And so, one could be a machine
well, that's right.
gun,
That's right. In my marriage, it was adultery and
sure.
all kinds of things. In yours, it was depression and different sorts of
circumstances. It just looks different for everybody.
It looks different. But the enemy is the enemy, regardless of what weapons. The bottom line is we're the keeper. We are the guard. To be like, no, you're not getting my home and family. I am guarding this, and I see the enemy coming, and it's not okay, and I'm going to be strong.
Exactly.
And we are strong. As women, we are very strong.
Absolutely.
And we have a responsibility. Now, I do have some men that are watching today, but just to know that we value them, and we care about them, and we're protecting their home too. It's our home.
Well, absolutely, and here's what I believe. I believe that a wrong concept of this passage causes misplaced authority in women who are married. So we want to take authority, wanting it to be godly. So we point to our husbands and we say, you need to be the spiritual leader.
Right. You need to be the spiritual leader over our home.
You need to do this. You need to do that.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't need to do anything. You need to get by the gate and be the guardian of the atmosphere. Love him, respond to him in honor, with respect.
Yeah.
And you let God work in his life. Because God has only assigned him authority over you and the children, not the atmosphere.
Not the atmosphere, not the home.
You have assignment of the atmosphere over the home and the maintenance of it.
Yeah.
He can help you, but you're really the manager.
We got to make sure it's all taken care of.
You're the CEO of it. You can just distribute, but you don't take authority over him. Then you have misplaced power.
We have the full responsibility for the guardianship of our home, to be the keeper of our home, and the full responsibility to teach our children and our grandchildren and other people that are younger than us to do the same thing.
And another big misconception and a misquote is that a lot of people will say, well, the word says that the husband is the priest of the home. Show me the scripture. The word does not say that. Let me just encourage you. I know I'm speaking mostly to women today, but we're talking.
That's what she does.
But we're talking out of the passage for women, to women.
That's
These
true.
are what we're to be teaching our daughters and living ourselves.
And
when we do, we'll have strong men.
That's true. Yeah.
We'll have
our sons will raise up strong sons. That's what I did.
Incredibly. So
shout out to my boys watching right now.
But there's no scripture that says the husband is the priest of the home. Let me just encourage men and women. We have one priest, one high priest. His name is Jesus. Your husband or your wife can be very disobedient and you still have a priest. It doesn't stop the spiritual flow and empowerment in your home. It can come through one person. If you will stay in the position in alignment where God has put you, husbands, remain headship and covering and protection over your wife when she's disobedient. You be her guardian over her. And then
The covering.
yes, and wives, when your husband is disobedient, you take authority over the atmosphere of that home. And you create love and peace, and you watch what God will do. So,
And we've both seen it.
I want to encourage you today that being the guardian is it is a significant spiritual assignment. God really trusted you as women. He gave you the giftings, the empowerment, the spiritual discernment. You know, women are given the kind of the identity of having intuition by psychology and so forth. But that intuition is actually a gift from God to be able to be a good guardian, because you can sense things that men don't sense. The sensitivity that we have is given for us to be able to fulfill our assignment.
Bottom line is that's your purpose. So if you didn't know your purpose before you joined Periscope today, now you know your purpose, and you can read it in the Bible in Titus 2. Thank y'all for joining us today, and for also all of you who are watching the replay. Thank you so much for watching the replay.
Hi, Brazil.
And thank you to everyone in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then everyone all over the world that's watching. I'll be back at 9 o'clock tonight, Periscoping. We're sticking with the topic of being the keepers of our home and using the curriculum from my mom's book, The Home Experience. So I will see y'all later. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Bye-bye. It's kind of depressing.